you a 2, 3, or 4-dimensional being? I'm going to break that down, and you see where you're at. I know where I'm at. Welcome to Body of Truth. I am Rebecca Windsor. So in my study of, I'm going to use a man as an example here because that's traditionally what I'm studying and who I'm working with. But this certainly applies to any interior journey. So the two-dimensional man in the book that I'm studying is the simple man, is the man who lives an unexamined life, but also enjoys things in an innocent way. He doesn't, he enjoys his meal, he enjoys his simple labor, and at the end of the day, he enjoys his place to rest. That is a two-dimensional man. And in the book I'm reading, the allegory that they draw is Don Quixote, right? So he lives in a world of unreality. He lives in a world of fantasy, but any possibility is true. So he goes charging at windmills and only when things kind of go awry does he rationalize them in his mind. But he is insulated from the tragedy because he is this, like, he's got a naivete. And so three-dimensional man is where you have decided to look inward. You have taken on the task of looking within your stories, but you get stuck in your story. Or you get stuck in inaction. And so the allegory is drawn to Hamlet, right? So he stews, he tortures himself, he looks at it from every angle, he handles it, he faces it, but he also stays mired in it. And his inaction is ultimately his undoing, and actually brings down a lot of misery on everyone else's lives too. And I just want to add, his denial of the feminine in his life not only adds to the women in his lives literally being destroyed, but because he doesn't have that temper within him, he ultimately destroys himself. And so then the transition is from the three-dimensional man to the four-dimensional man. The four-dimensional man, the allegory is Faust, right? So this is a very learned doctor, and the premise is that God has challenged the devil in reward. So the deal is that Faust will have 24 years of youth and frivolity, but he has to pay, the price is his soul. However, if he doesn't get attached to those, because he was always studying, but if he doesn't get attached to those youthful years of vitality, because he gets to do them over and comes out the other side, his soul remains his own. So the idea here is, and I love this, is that it's the return to joy, innocence, and levity, lightness, but with the knowledge that you gain through a very hard journey, right? So at the end, he retains his soul. So the joy in that and the beauty in that is that it's kind of like you go back to where you started from, but you have the wisdom to know the difference. So instead of naive, you're simply joyful, and you can be wondrous without the naive, right? You can even return to innocence, but not naivete. So I love the idea of injecting a little more levity and joy. I am someone who tends to take things very seriously, and I like that about myself. However, there is a time to lighten up. And in this day and age where I just spoke yesterday about the pressure that you can feel from the world and unseen forces, just you can feel this pressure bodily, if not like stress level and tempo. And I mean, I it's so clear to me. So even people that I know that kind of don't really do a lot of deep work are like, dude, what's going on? Like something is afoot, right? So in these times of swirl and a little bit of chaos and certainly unrest, adding a little bit of joy back in and the ability to be in wonder is priceless, especially when that wonder comes from all of the fruits of your work, all of the hard labor that you do dealing with your shadow, inviting the shadow pieces to the table, spending your time in the pit. It's inevitable. We all will do that at some point or another in the work that we do. But as long as you don't stay there, as long as you don't become Hamlet and let those things overtake you, because you can very, very easily fall in love with the struggle. I was there for a long time. You fall in love with the fascination of your own darkness. And that is really helpful for a long time. But the whole idea is that that is just one place of your evolution, and you need to keep evolving and hopefully transcending. That's the idea. That is my goal. My goal is to transcend my stories, appreciate them, not let them affect my day to day behavior, or if they creep in, they're going to creep in. Be able to identify them and free myself very quickly. And add a little more joy back in. And wonder. And wonder. I stayed a kid for a long time. My sister was like clomping around in my mom's high heels much more quickly than me. And not that I was a tomboy, but I really enjoyed being a child. And there is some of that wonder that I absolutely have retained. And I'm going to sort of hopefully get outside this weekend and take some time to really get back to that place of wonder. So, what I welcome you today is to take a moment and see which dimension you are living in now. So I would say I'm 3, really working hard to push into 4. I'm not stuck in my story, but I don't know that I could say that I've quite transcended yet. And that may be a lifelong process, and enjoying the process is so important. But adding joy is a lesson that I can take from the 4-dimensional man, and maybe that's the amplitude that I need to move from one to the other. So identifying where you are and then adding joy to your journey to help you along, especially if you're in a place of very serious self-reflection. A Doors song I love is 5 to 1, and the 4th line is, no one here gets out alive. So, do you want it to be that pounding and driving, which sometimes is necessary to break through, right? Break down to break through. I just said it the other day. But the whole idea is that you break through to a place of peace, a new place where you take everything you've learned and it gets to all live inside you. No blame, no shame, and being, not defined by doing. Enjoy today, and I will see you tomorrow.